So just by the raise of hands, how many of you are like eager or excited to not pay taxes? So just, yeah. So I want to emphasize this because this is just a subtle change of thought. I actually don't want you to be excited because my job is not to make you excited and it's not to make you fearful or ashamed. My job is to empower you that you can actually do this yourself. And the reason I know you already can do that is because you're different than most people. Most people that I talk to, they tell me, I want to learn how to save taxes, or to give me all the strategies, give me all the solutions, but then they don't show up to things like this. They don't have consultations. They don't take action. But the fact that you first came to this event and through the way to sit here tells me that you're actually different, and you should be proud of yourself for taking the first step to choosing to not pay taxes, because it has nothing to do with your professional. It has 100% to do with you, and I'm going to empower you even more today so that becomes even more real for you, because you're the one that does it, not the professionals. So I want to tell you stories of clients that we have dealt with. These are true stories. The names have been changed, but they're true. So Derek in 2008 had built a real estate empire. He was making millions of dollars a year. Everything was fabulous. And he wasn't like in 2008, there were speculators. There was people that were just buying houses just to buy houses because they could get a mortgage for it and then waiting to sell it. They were guessing, they were speculating. He had a business that generated millions of dollars a year. On a ski trip, he gets hit by a snowmobile. His steamer breaks. He's laying in his hospital bed as he watches the market crash and his real estate empire crumble. And he loses $1 million plus in a matter of months, and he couldn't do a thing about it. Bruce and Amy were married. They built an extremely successful company together. They were innovators, they were visionaries. They created a portfolio of over $20 million in assets. Amy decides, I don't want to be married anymore. I'm not happy, I'm not enjoying myself. She asks for a divorce. The business starts to decline because they're business partners. It doesn't go well. And their portfolio, which once was 20 million, is slashed to 2 million each in a matter of months. Mike is the prototypical successful entrepreneur, like many of you. Helps people scale businesses, done things that's helped thousands of entrepreneurs become better, and he's made millions of dollars doing it. But Mike didn't like doing things the way that everyone else did. So he didn't like to invest in real estate or stock market. He liked to invest in the people that he was associating with. And he invested millions of dollars over a course of 15 years. At the end of that 15 years, thousands were left. Mike had made lots and lots of money, but his investment choices had caused him to not actually build wealth. Lastly, there's Chris. Chris was a $1 million a year plus earner, was doing the things that he thought was correct, saving 10% of his income, investing in a portfolio, some stocks, some real estate. But when Chris went to retire, step away from business, his portfolio could only support a $500,000 lifestyle, which sounds fabulous, but not when you're used to a $1.5 million lifestyle. Chris has been making money, building wealth for a life that he actually didn't want. He thought he was doing it, but he didn't create it for what he wanted. Tragically, these stories happen over and over and over again amongst entrepreneurs, and they are what happens more often than not. It's the trap of an entrepreneur. You make millions of dollars, you think I'm building wealth, but oftentimes when it's too late, you realize all you were doing was just making lots and lots of money. So I have a proposition for you to think about. What if your money-making skills which truly are world-class. Like, I don't think you realize how world-class it is. Your ability how much money you make is truly 1% in the entire world. We have 8 billion people in this world, and you make more money than 99% of them, and it's because of your skills. But what if that skill was lulling you to sleep? It was making you believe that you were building wealth when in reality, all you were was just really, really, really good at making money. So what I'm going to do for the next 45 minutes is I'm going to show you how you can transform the money-making skills into wealth-building skills, because that's the step that most entrepreneurs just can't get right. How many of you are familiar, just by the raise of hand, what a family office is? Okay, keep your hands up. Those of you that rose your hand, how many of you know what makes a family office special? Okay, so there's a few of you, which is really good. But for everyone else, for those of you that didn't raise your hand, a family office is usually reserved for people that at bare minimum have $50 million of net worth, but usually you don't see it till 100 million or 200 million. And is what they're doing is they're coming and they're hiring a group of professionals, an accountant, an investment advisor, attorneys, insurance people, and they're getting them to only work for them. So you don't have another client. I'm your client. I'm your only client, and your goal is to grow my family's wealth and protect it. But that's not actually what makes a family office special. What makes a family office special is the fact that they are all in the same room and they're communicating, they're collaborating consistently. They all are on the exact same page. There is no, I'm doing this investment, and then the insurance person's like, well, I would rather have that capital with me. They all know exactly what the goal of the family is, and they're all working towards that goal. That's what makes a family office special, and that stands in stark contrast to the vast majority of entrepreneurs. Their professionals look something like this. I want you to imagine with me that I have a track that's up here with me. So in lane 1, we have the accountant. In lane 2, we have the insurance advisor. In lane 3, we have the investment advisor. And in lane 4, you have yourself. When the gun fires, you run off to the left because you're chasing the next shiny object that's appeared in the business world to go make more money. The investment advisor, it's very true though. The investment advisor runs straight ahead, head down, blinders on, not paying attention to anyone else but himself. The insurance advisor runs backwards because they're kind of lost in nowhere land. And the accountant stands still because they're too afraid to act and working on last year's returns. They are running their races, not your race. There is no collaboration amongst them. And because they're running their race, they're not going to take you where you actually need to go. Versus what a family office is doing is these professionals are running your race, not their race. So as what should be happening is when the gun fires, everyone is running in unison towards the same exact destination and goal. The problem is that sounds good in theory, but how do you actually get these people who work for, you're not their only client, how do you get them to actually work for you in a manner that gets them to collaborate with other people? So I'm going to give you a framework that's going to help you actually lead these people in a way that will get them to buy into you versus everyone else. But before I can give you that framework, I first need to explain what the actual problem is. Because if you don't understand the actual problem, it's hard to fix, even with the framework. So the actual problem is this. In business, we have organization charts. At the top of the organization chart is the CEO, the founder, the owner. The reason that they're at top is because they're the leader of it. But is what happens with your wealth people is they are at the top and they are leading you. They're telling you your destination. So this is a common thing that happens. You go to an investment advisor and they say, what is the minimum amount of money that you want to live on by X age? Usually it's age 65 or 70. They then will pull out a number that says you need to have this much in assets. What they just did was put a ceiling on your potential, and they are leading you to a destination that has nothing to do with what you wanted. It's what they wanted and what they put on you. And that same thing happens with an accountant. That same thing happens in insurance. They are leading you to the destination that they lead all their clients to versus you leading them. So the solution first and foremost is that you have to put yourself back at the top of the organization chart. You have to lead them. They cannot lead you. Now the framework is going to teach you and show you a way that you can actually lead them so that they can work with you towards your destination. So we call this the 5 keys. This is the 5 keys framework. Each of these keys is individual, and each of these keys are going to give you the tools to do that leadership so you can lead your wealth team so they're all in unison. So key number 1 is vision. Either jot these questions down or just think and ponder them, but do think about them. So question number 1 that I have for you is, what is your end destination in business and wealth? What is the destination that you're trying to reach? My next question I want you to think a little harder on than just the top of your head, but the question is who gave you that destination? Was it you? Or was it imprinted on you by someone else? Was it society? Was it an accountant? Or did you determine where that was? My next question is, if I asked your accountant what your vision was, what your end destination was, would they be able to articulate it in the exact manner that you want it to be? What about your investment advisor, your insurance person, your COO, your spouse? Can they articulate that destination in the exact manner that you can articulate it? If the answer to that question is no, then you cannot lead your family office because there is no destination to go to. They're going to lead you because you don't have anywhere to go to. They're just going to continue to do it. So you have to set where you're going for them so that they can join you, so you can leverage their skills to get there. Otherwise, they're just going to take you where everyone else goes, and everyone else ends up middle class. So let me give you an example of this so you can start to see it. So in 20 years, I am going to give away $1 million. So in 2045, I'm going to give away $1 million. But in 21 years, I'm going to give away $1 million again. In 40 years, I'm going to give away probably $5 to $6 million. So in 20 years is the first time that I'll give away $1 million, but it's going to be into perpetuity. 3 generations from now, my family is going to give away $1 billion a year. That is a completely different vision than I'm going to stop working at age 65 with X amount of dollars, and they can enlist myself into that and join me on that. And if they're not the right person, they'll exit out of that. The question you have to ask yourself is, who is leading who? And if you have a vision, which is key 1 to leading people, you can take them where you're going versus them taking where you're going. Just so everyone knows, because sometimes people don't understand how much it takes. To give away $1 million, I have to have an asset portfolio that's around 20 to 25 million that is completely separate from income and wealth. It has to be completely designated for giving, just to give you a ballpark number of what I need to reach in 20 years. It's between 20 and 25 million in assets to be able to give away $1 million on an annual perpetual basis. So key 1 is vision. Once you have your vision, you can then reverse engineer back to today. What are the priorities that I need to be engaging in to actually make that possible? So let me give an example on how this actually works. So, because there's so many things in the marketplace. There's trust, there's LLCs, there's index funds, there's life insurance, there's crypto, there's real estate, there's buying businesses. You have hundreds of choices on what you could be doing with your money at that given time. But because you have a vision, it gives you a filter on what priorities stand true today. So for example, in mine, if I have a vision in 20 years of giving away $1 million, does maxing out a SEP IRA do anything to help me accomplish that quest? It doesn't. So I can eliminate that. I don't even have to debate on, is this the best place for it? Should I invest? Is this going to get the best return? It's not going to help me get there. So it's an automatic no, and it's off the table of is it actually going to do it? So all of your choices can run through that same filter. Is this thing, this trust, this protection service, this investment, this business opportunity, is it going to help me reach the destination that I want to reach in the time frame that I want to reach it? And if it's a no, it's an automatic swipe off the table. If it's a yes, it's a priority for whoever task that is, whether it's the accountant, the investment person, or someone that's helping with protection. So the vision in key 1 helps us set the priorities in key number 2. The third key is how do you know what good looks like for each of these professionals? It's a lot like a mechanic. You kind of just trust your car is going to get treated well when you take it to the mechanic, but you actually don't know if they did a good job because it came back running. They could have done a 75% job, but you can't see it. So how can we start to know what good looks like with these professionals so we can hold them accountable to helping us reach our vision? So now that we have the vision, we've set the priorities, we can then identify very specific metrics on what does good look like for that specific priority, and you work with the person to identify those things. So for example, for mine, like in 2025, we are going to acquire 2 businesses that are going to increase our valuation from about 3 million to about 10 million in valuation. That's going to happen by year's end. But the reason that priority came is because I know the vision, and that's going to help us we can't organically get there. I can't just set aside money. I have to do it quicker, and business is the way to do that. So that's, for me, the priority. But now I can identify what does good look like to accomplish that? So how many reach outs are we doing? How many people are we talking to? How many conversations are we having? How many LOIs are given? We can set metrics on each of those, and now I have something to hold my professional account to. And if they can't perform that, either we can have a conversation how we can fix it or adjust what good looks like. But now you can actually hold people accountable to helping you get onto the track. So if we have the goal of saving $50,000 in taxes, we can create what is good going to look like for that to happen. And now I know if my accountant's doing what they're supposed to be doing because I've set the standard of what good looks like. Vision, priority, what does good look like? The fourth is, and this is an equation, and I know that I give off really, really nerdy math vibes. So I really like equations, but it's x plus y equals z. And this equation is really important because x is, do I have the capital? Do I have the people? Do I have the skills? Do I have the resources? Y is, do I have the time? Do I have the training? And Z is the outcome. That's the big vision, but it's also the short-term priority of being accomplished. And then, am I 90% confident that if I perform what good looks like, that we will reach Z? Yeah. Am I 90% confident that if X and Y happen, that Z will also occur?
Can you define it?
Yeah, so it's anything from, do I have the capital? Do I have the skills? Do I have the network? Do I have the time and resources? X and Y are more, they could even be the same, but the equation helps us get there. But then it's not just you that has to have this confidence. You have to go to your accountant and say, are we 90% confident that we can reach Z if X and Y happen? If they say no, then you can change the inputs because X and Y can be changed because you can add more capital. You can spend more time. And then are you 90% confident? So you can start to create a confidence meter within yourself and your team that you're actually going to reach the destination that you're shooting for. So key 4 is, am I 90% confident that if I accomplish what good looks like, that I will reach my priorities, and if I reach my priorities, I'll reach my vision. Now the last key is the capstone. And it's one that's often missed because each of these professionals work for other people. And in all honesty, they currently do not have anyone in their client base that is treating them the way that you are going to treat them. And in many instances, that's going to be more work for them. And if they don't know what's in it for them, how they're going to win, it's likely they're not going to perform what good looks like, and they're not going to be on your side. So they have to understand what happens when we win, what happens when we reach the destination. If they can't see that, if it isn't articulated and defined to them, it's likely they're not going to be bought into the overall mission. So just some ideas around this. I'm just giving you some ideas, but because we're building something quite large, there's an increased size in portfolio, which means an increased size of the complexity, which means they get paid more for their services. So they're going to be paid more if they're willing to work more with you. So that's number one. But number two is that no one's treating them like this. They're leading everyone else that they talk to. You're leading them. So now you're going to raise their capacity and their clarity and their vision. So because you're their client, because they're associated in your ecosystem, they get to be risen and reach higher levels of success and potential because you chose them. So that's a benefit. And then lastly, it is that at some point we are going to have a family office that is going to be owned, and I have it. But if they've been with me the whole time, I will hire them. I'm not going to hire some other people because they already know what I'm doing. So that has an upside win for them because now they don't have to worry about other clients and they're still going to be compensated really well. So those are ways you could define what does winning look like for you. So to recap, everyone on your team should be able to recite your vision, not their vision, your vision. They should be able to know what priorities have been re-engineered back. They should know what good looks like to accomplish those priorities. They should have 90% confidence that they perform what good looks like, that they're going to reach those, and then they know what's in it for them and they can recite it to you. That is how you can lead your own personal family office. It's also how you can lead your employees and things of that nature, but in this situation, it's for your family office. Is this, just give me a quick clap if this has resonated. Yeah. No, it's okay. So what is going to happen here is I'm going to draw this out. So what you've created when you do this is I like to view this in form of like a table. So you have the tax piece, insurance/protection. I'm just going to use insurance for simplicity. You have your business, and you have your investments. And you've brought them all together. Is what happens in most situations is people's table looks like this. So it has holes. You have great professionals. Like I meet with just absolute astronomical, just really, really talented professionals. Talented. But there is gaps here. So when you pour money on this table, all of it stays on the table. When you pour money on this table, a lot of it unknowingly falls in the gaps. And you don't even feel it, you don't even know it, you don't even recognize it, they don't recognize it. And the problem is that this cost is millions of dollars for people that do, I'll just generalities. It's millions of dollars for people that are doing 1 to 5 million in revenue. If you start getting to 10 to 20 to 30 million in revenue, you're talking tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars lost that could have been on your table, in your life, at your moment, because you chose not to embrace and create a family cohesive office unit. It just dissipated into nothing because your table wasn't holding it. You captured lots of it. You'll look really successful. But one of the reasons all those stories are all too common is because all the money is disappearing without them recognizing it before it gets there. So it just disappears. All the money they're making just falls off the table. But something I've discovered is that when you create that table, it also has an extremely profound positive effect on your ability to save taxes, and it's astronomical. And you won't get this insight from just a tax person. You won't get this insight from just an investment person. It's when they're unified that you actually save as much as possible. These people can save you lots, and they can do great things. but there's another layer to what they can do that they miss because they're not united with a group of professionals. And so what I'm going to show you right now is how do we get this to turn into tax savings for us? And then once we can understand this, what strategies are actually available for us to save taxes. Okay? So just a second, it slipped my mind where I'm going. So man, it's gone for a second. So if I asked you, how do I save taxes? What do you expect the response to be? So just quickly turn to your neighbor and say what you think that, if you were gonna ask a professional, how do I save taxes? What do you think their response to you would be?
Save tax. Excuse me, sure.
Okay.
Okay, so let's come back. I'm just going to take one table, and can you just say one thing that your table, not all the things, just one thing your table said or thought of. So we'll start with this table. Just write-offs, okay? Same write-offs.
Yes.
Augusta rule, okay. Okay.
So having your investments in the right entities.
Okay, good. So all these things you just said, I'm going to categorize them as strategies. Everyone wants to, when they want to talk about tax strategies, is they want to immediately jump to, give me the strategies, which is important. You have to have the strategies to save taxes. But if you skip the creation of this, those strategies fall short. And let me give you a few examples. So if I have because you go to a lot of events, you're going to hear specific professionals that are specialized in one area of the tax code that will promote one strategy to you. So like, we'll just say it's an insurance strategy. We'll say it's captive insurance, which can be popular. If captive insurance is over here and I have a discombobulated table that's not connected, the chance that it actually makes it to my accountant and my accountant approves it has dropped significantly because they don't trust this person. They have no idea who this person is, and they have no incentive to say yes to that strategy. Even if this strategy is completely legal, completely compliant, they don't know who that is, and how on earth are they supposed to do due diligence when they're doing thousands of tax returns for everyone else? So their incentive is always to say no to strategies because it's not connected. They don't have a team that they can actually trust and rely on. So when you can bring the team together, now when that strategy is proposed, it just slides across the table. And now it can actually be executed, it actually gets performed, and now you get to reap the benefits of it. Because the problem with this is the accountant's not the one that gets hurt by not doing the strategy. You're the one that gets hurt. You're the one that pays extra in money. You're the one that's the recipient of paying too much. It's not them. So that's why it's indicative upon you to be the one that creates this. You can't make them create this. That's not their job. So you have to create the synergy so that these things can be easily passed around the table. A good image that I like is, you've seen those war movies where you have the general standing over the map. They can see the entire lay of the land, and they move the troops to their designated spots based on what's happening in the moment, the terrain, the weather, what is the enemy doing, etc. They can move the troops around the board, but if they have a board that looks like this, it's minimized and they don't get to execute it. The next issue before I jump into what strategies are on the table is, the problem is that most accountants aren't good like this. There are really good accountants like this. Most accountants come to the table with something like that. So not only are they not doing this, but they also are doing a really bad job at actually doing anything else outside of filing your taxes. I don't have time today to go over how do you identify if your accountant looks like this, but if you want to have a conversation with me, I can show you the accountants that look like that. But this is the unfortunate truth, is that they don't have the board size big enough to actually help you save strategies. So you could bring them as many strategies you want, and they would just fall through all the cracks because their board is too small to handle them and they can't see the full picture. So, step one is to build the board. Step two is to fill it with the troops and the strategies so you can actually go execute it. So there are, oh, actually, I'm sorry, I forgot about this. I want to show you actually the true cost of this. So what's the cost of choosing this, or even worse, this? So I'm going to take it, this is a real business. This is someone that we helped. So their business revenue was 1.3 million. Their taxable income was 222,000. They paid $75,000 in taxes, but they were operating inside of this structure. They had a decent accountant. They weren't like, it was probably somewhere between this in size. But the overpayment for this person was $20,000. They paid $20,000 unnecessarily because they didn't use strategies, because they didn't have the board. But what is the cost of $20,000 over the course of an entire business process? So I'm just going to do this over a 30-year period, but usually business is longer than 30 years, so this is going to be bigger than this. But if we do 20,000 by 30, it's 600,000, but that's not including the idea that we have inflation occurring. That's not including the idea that this person also is probably improving their skills, so their revenue is going up over time. And it's not including the fact that that 600,000 is completely gone from that person's existence forever. So if you factor in the fact that that person could have kept the 600,000 and then done something with the 600,000 inside of their board, they could have moved it strategically back to the other areas, it's well over $1 million plus in cost. So the question you have to ask yourself is, because the true cost is not the $4,000 to $8,000 that you pay the accountant. It's not the $20,000 loss. It's $1 million. So you have to ask yourself the question, am I willing to pay that cost just because my accountant's my father-in-law? Am I willing to pay that cost because my accountant is my friend? Am I willing to pay that cost because I've been with my accountant for 20 years? If you're okay giving up $1 million 30 years in the future, then you can say yes to that. If you're okay with that cost, then be okay with the cost. But that is the true cost, and it gets perpetually worse the more money someone makes. So that's just a personal question that you have to ask yourself. So now I'm going to give you strategies. Yeah. So I'm going to give you strategies off of another case study. And some of you, when you see the numbers of this case study, you're going to be like, well, this isn't applicable to me. He makes way more money than I do. But you need to remember that basic strategies are still applicable to the people that make lots of money. It just is as you get up the scale and ladder of income, more strategies become available. So we're going to start at the basic. So those are applicable to most of you in the room once you create the board. And then we're going to get into some advanced stuff. But the reason I'm going to give you advanced strategies that may or may not be applicable yet is because someday they will be, because you're different. You came to an event that's about helping more people, and you're going to be at a level of income that will eventually make these possible. And you can know that these are types of conversations that you should be having with your team. So this is someone that had a $21 million revenue business. Their taxable income was $2.7 million. Their tax bill was $770,000. And they had a very good accountant. So they had I would call it like this. So their accountant had lots of depth. They'd done lots of different strategies. And they paid $770,000. But they left, if they wanted to, they could have saved 721 of that. Had they done things with the full board that I'll show you in just a second. Because now we're going to go through the strategies of how do we create $721,000 of tax savings with this. And then to talk about the cost, just to show you the exponential nature of this, is for him, that's if that can perpetuate it, it's $59 million out of his portfolio, out of his estate that is gone forever because they chose to stay with an accountant that was good, but hadn't connected all the pieces. So I call these the ground troop strategies. So these are the ones that are really consistent. They're ones you're probably going to do on an annual basis. They're ones that don't take a lot of effort to implement. And they specifically for people that are doing $100,000 to $300,000 of personal income, these ones will have a pretty sizable effect for you. And then I'll move into the back up one slide. I'll move into the special ones that make a massive difference, and you can really be strategic with your placement of them. So the first one is what Charles, that's correct, right? Charles, yep. What Charles said, this is, you have a choice here between the Augusta rule or the home office deduction. How you utilize them is kind of dependent upon your situation. So home office is really great for people that have a brick and mortar location to go to. And if the brick and mortar is a little bit farther away, they can really benefit from having a home office deduction. The Augusta rule is simply every American can rent out their property for 14 days a year. If you happen to rent it out for 14 days a year and made $100,000, that 14 days a year is all income tax free. The way you can leverage it as a business is you can rent as a person. So me renting it to my business, and my business gets a deduction, and the income my business pays me is now income tax free. So I've shifted income that enters my household from being taxable to tax free. So it has a minor effect, and depending on where you are in the country, depends on the prices that you can use for that. But it's fairly easy to implement. The next one is just making sure you're paying yourself appropriately. So if you're paying yourself too much salary, you're paying too much payroll tax, and if you just pay 15% extra. Every dollar you pay in salary, you pay 15% on. So the smaller you can make your salary, the less you can pay in taxes. The best rule of thumb for this is if you just, what does it cost to hire someone like you? So a good example is if I have an associate doctor that I'm going to hire, how much would I have to pay that person? And then that's how much you can pay yourself in salary, and everything above that is dividend. That's a very broad strokes, but that's a good.
Question: in an S corp, if the pastor, you still pay that extra 15%.
Yes, on the salary piece. So it doesn't matter. The S corp is usually, it's not the only vehicle, but it's usually the vehicle people use to get the salary dividend split set up right. So the money on the salary is still taxed at 15%. Just the dividend money, the distributions, the owner's draws are not. Yeah, but you still pay income tax on both. It's just that this one's income and payroll, and this one is just income. And I do actually have to mention this, so please just bear with. I'm not providing each of you with individual tax strategy or advice. If you want to have conversation around, you can talk to me or your individual professional about these things, but I'm not just telling you to go do this and you get to go do it and then mess it up and then come back and sue me or something. I'm not doing that. Yeah. The next one is just an HSA. All of us have medical expenses. The HSA has a triple tax effect, so I get a deduction when I put it in. It grows tax-free, and if I access it for medical expenses, I also get to access it tax-free, so those dollars never get taxed for medical expenses. So it can be strategically played inside of the idea, and this is why we step back over the map and we're looking at how much do we want to contribute, do we contribute, and it allows us a clean picture, but this would technically save you money on your taxes, specifically for high medical folks. You have to have a high deductible plan, medical plan, but medical insurance is just a mess in general, so it's hard to navigate. But if you can get a high deductible medical health insurance plan, it can be a good fit, and it will have tax ramifications. You can also invest. You can actually invest the money inside your HSA, so you can put it in real estate or other assets as well on your own. So those are, but it's not if you, yeah, yeah, that's a good thing. Yeah. The next one that's simple is just if you have children, teaching them to be involved in the business. So giving them tasks, giving them roles. It needs to be proportionate to the work that they do. But you can do just over $14,000 per child and all the money you pay them is income tax free. So it's a way to, again, get money into your household in a very tax efficient manner. You're not paying taxes on those dollars. But for those of you with a little bit older children, kids that are in high school and in college, another tactic you can use is you're in a high tax bracket. So you're in the 32, 35, 37% tax bracket. If you're paying for your children's school, just employ your child as a, intern, like a executive intern. So you can pay them more than the $14,000, which is, they'll pay taxes once it rises over $14,000, but their tax bracket is at that point only 10. And so you're gonna pay for that money already. So just get them to work and learn exactly what you're doing and teach them entrepreneurship, teach them responsibility, and pay them for doing it. And it will also have tax ramifications for you that are positive. This next one is applicable to 33 states in the United States, but not Texas. So if you're a Texas, because you don't have state income tax. The pass-through entity tax selection, if you have state income tax, 33 states have a window of time. If you pay your state income tax in that window, you can deduct the amount on your federal return. If you pay it outside of this window, you cannot. You're gonna pay the same amount no matter what, so learn what that window is and go do it, and you'll create a deduction for yourself. And you would be surprised at how many people don't do this. And for people that have high state income tax, it can save you a lot of money.
So I would assume that wouldn't apply to any tax-free state, like Florida.
Correct, yeah, because they don't have state income tax. Yep. Yes, and they do have a window, yep.
Dude, they never told me. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't usually, unfortunately.
You never do.
Yeah. I'm gonna move through because I'm gonna run out of time on some of these. So I'm gonna move through these smaller ones really quickly. So this is just learning, how do I think about personal expenses and business, and how can I merge them? People will abuse this one. This is where people kind of make a gray line on, this is a business expense. But if it's legitimate and you can prove that it's actual business and it just happens to relate, has some personal benefits, it can be a good way to save taxes. The book Tax-Free Wealth by Tom Wheelwright has a lot of ideas on how to do that, just as a side note. The last one that's really simple is just ADA credits. So if you have equipment in your physical locations, your websites can oftentimes qualify for this credit, and it's not massive, but all these small ones aren't massive, but when you accumulate them, it could be $10 to $15 to $20 to $30,000 in tax savings that you just have to do them and you get it. So now let me talk about some of the special forces, because these are the ones that make the massive, massive differences, and these are the ones where we need to have the board really dialed in. So all the ground troops, the great accountants are really good at implementing them, so that's why they get the big triangle, because they are accumulating all those together and they're actually doing it with you. But these special forces are the ones where they start to have to bridge into some other professionals, and in many cases they get left dry. So tax smart investments in the United States incentivizes people to invest in specific industries: real estate, oil, natural gas, wind, solar, and agriculture. And these aren't stock market investments, these are private alternative investments that are on the market. If you invest in those things, you will simultaneously create a tax deduction or tax credit. And if you don't have access to that because your investment team isn't strong enough, or these people aren't connected, even if your investment team does have it, you never get to take advantage of it, even though it's probably something that you would do, you just never had the opportunity placed before you, and thus you pay too much in taxes. Those can range from depreciation to oil is 90-ish percent off every dollar that you invest. Natural gas is about 75 to 85% off of every dollar that you invest, creates a tax deduction. So it can be actually fairly large. There's some clients that we have that will do like a very, very large oil investment, and they'll eliminate their entire tax bill in one swoop because you can take it all the way down to zero. So they have an asset that's now going to grow and appreciate and provide cash flow, and they got to save taxes at the same time. The next one is leveraged donations. This is where you donate $1 and it will create a $2 tax deduction.
Say that again?
I donate $1, but it will create a $2 or $1.50 tax deduction, depending on where we are on the tax bracket. I don't have time to go into the details of that one, but it's nice. Micro captives is another one. So this is where we have an insurance arm here where we can create our own insurance company. It can make sense if your business has over 1.5 million of revenue. It's not always the right choice, but it can make sense. But again, this isn't about trying to choose which one of these. We have the big board created, and we choose the ones that are best for the individual time that we're in at that moment, and we can move it strategically on the board. The next one is private placement life insurance. This one is very valuable for people that have one of two situations. So number one is I'm going to have a very large exit in the future, and my current valuation is low. So if I currently have a valuation of 1 million, we'll say, but I want to have an exit of 50 million, if I stick shares of my company inside the private placement life insurance, when we exit at 50 million, that growth between 1 and 50 million is in a tax protected circle, which doesn't get taxed. So you kept all the capital gains. It also can benefit you if you have $1 million of cash flow flowing through your business, and you can save on income tax through private placement life insurance. Next one is GFX trading. This is where you're gonna be deferring taxes, but you'll end up having more money ahead. So it's a 15-year deferral, but you get to grow the money the entire time you get to defer it. And then when you get to the end, you pay the tax bill that you had to pay 15 years ago, and you have a pot of money that's a lot bigger because you got to keep it the entire time. The next one is cost segregation. This is very popular. This is the one that most tax strategists in the world use. They want you to buy real estate. They want you to cost segregate it. And they want you to take accelerated depreciation and then just keep repeating it. So President Trump, the reason his taxes were so low is he used this, but he was a real estate professional and that was his business. Many of you aren't real estate professionals and people want to force you into real estate, and it might be the right choice, but it might not be what you actually want. So it's about, again, choosing the strategy that fits what actually is best for your situation at the time, but it can be a really effective strategy. It's very powerful, but it's not right for everyone that doesn't want to be in real estate. Next one is opportunity zones. So if you have a capital gains event, there's zones across the United States. If you invest in those zones, like an example, there's one right outside of San Jose, in San Jose, California, right on the border of the Google enterprise area there. And if you invest in that zone, the money that goes in there, you don't have to pay capital gains on it. If you keep it there for 10 years, the capital gains gets wiped away forever, and you get the investment returns that occurred over that 10-year period. The next one is just, you can move to Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is if you like Puerto Rico, it can be a really good strategy. If you don't like Puerto Rico, then just take it off your table, but it is real. You do save a lot of money in taxes by moving there. The next one is called premium funding. So this is for companies that have at least 25 million in valuation, but usually you like to see it around 100 million. You can take your illiquid business asset and you can create a life insurance policy out of it, and it can pay for a life insurance policy for you without you writing a check at all. And you can make it buy key man insurance on your biggest team players as well. And that process can create a deduction for you, and you didn't have to write a check for it. You took your illiquid asset and created policies out of nothing. Not out of nothing, there's a process to it, but it happens and you get to leverage your business into actual liquid cash in the form of life insurance. The last one, I think there's two more, private family foundations. So this is the vehicle that I will be utilizing to perpetuate my giving into perpetuity and into the generations. Private placement life insurance is our 501c3 that I am the owner of. And so when I contribute money to that, I get a tax deduction, and then it can grow in there in a tax-free environment, and then I can give it away to anyone that I want to. So instead of me just giving to the Red Cross, I can go give to individuals instead, but I get to control it, I get to grow it, and it is very efficient for creation.
I'll give you my next question is when we're going to mention that.
Yeah.
Also.
Let me go back really quick. Does anyone know what time it is? 5:21. I actually don't know what time I'm supposed to end because Rita left, but I think I'm getting close. I wanted to take some questions, but I don't have a ton of time for that. So let me just finish, and then if we want, you can come talk to me, and I'm happy to answer questions as much as you want, even later past the time. So I want to finish with this thought because I think this is really important. I think one of the biggest issues that I see with the financial world and the tax world is everyone is focused on very restrictive timelines. So is what I'm going to invite you to do is I want you to start thinking generational instead of just thinking for an end date. Make your end date never end and just keep making it so that you can perpetuate what you're doing. Because it doesn't have to be, like so many people are so obsessed, I'm worried about creating trust fund babies. If you're worried about creating that, just put everything in a private family foundation and make them work in the private family foundation and they can give away money. Now they're focused on giving and they can get a salary from it, but they have to work for it. And then your family is giving forever. So don't get caught up in that I'm going to create people that don't earn things. You can create value. There's ways to create value without doing it. But I want to tell you a story because I think this is an important, just high point to end on. The way I learned this message, and it has resonated with me since, is I learned this from my great-grandfather, whose name was George West. So George was a bomber pilot in World War II, and he was really good at it. He had as many medals as you could have. He flew 26 successful missions. But a week before D-Day, he was on one mission over Leipzig, Germany. And this mission, they encountered Nazi resistance at a pretty high level. So much so that the gunners in his plane, his people gunners, not like the gunners, like the individual, were killed. The plane was so badly damaged that he couldn't fly it back to Allied airspace. So he had to initiate emergency exit procedures. So he being the captain, one by one, he helped his navigator and then his bombardier and then his co-pilot find their way to safety. So they had left the plane. But when he stepped to jump out, the plane exploded. My grandmother was born a month later. So she never knew her dad. She only knew him by his actions, by what he chose to do. And that has rippled through the generations into my soul. And I think that each of us can choose to have a generational perspective instead of a finite one. Because when you have a generational perspective, your actions today, with the amount of skills you have around making money, with the amount of value that you're creating, can ripple through the generations so that that can last forever. And so my invitation to you is lead your family office, use the family office to save taxes. You will not lose millions and millions of dollars. You're gonna have more capital. You're gonna get to your destinations faster because more is on the table, and then use it to go do good and leave an impact that can last for generations. I'm going to be here a while, but please thank you.
Justin? I'm out loud.
Yep.
Yeah. So if you want to have a consultation with me, this will take you to my calendar. Everyone here gets a free complimentary tax review if you want it, and I'll show you where the gap is if you're losing money in the red or if you actually have the table already, because we're not the people, we don't have like an exclusive right to creating that table. You do, and so you might have already created it. But if there are holes, I can tell you where they are, and you can go fix them with your team, or we're happy to work with you too, because we've created that table for you.